something's gone wrong. For all our vigilance and battle scars over the Bill of Rights, we let the flame of freedom's torch grow cold. Because there can be no torch to pass where there's no flame.
Freedom has only one enemy it cannot defeat, and that is negligence. So your presence here, now, today, is an act of reverence. Of all man's works beneath the heavens, none shines brighter than our Constitution. I think Jefferson and Paine, Adams, Madison, Mason, Franklin, I think they're looking down right now at us. I think they understand what we're trying to do, what we strive to do. Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello?
This is John.
Hello, this is John. Hi, John.
Hello. Where's our host?
Seems we're having a little technical difficulty this evening.
Okay, we're here. We're here. We got you. All right, folks. We're here. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Anyway, folks, John Moore's our guest tonight. We also have Griff is back. Griff, can you hear me, buddy?
Yes, I can.
Okay, very good. So, folks, here we are. It's after the first of the year. It's 2011. And what perplexes me more than anything else is the fact that everybody's going around saying Happy New Year. Well, what the heck is there to be so happy about? That's my question. But joining us tonight again, John Moore of the website thelibertyman.com, and also the author of the presentation, Global Warming, What the Government Isn't Telling You. And isn't it interesting, John Moore, that we're seeing the UK and we're seeing Europe go into a deep freeze?
It is. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And yes, I warned about this initially in 2005, about the Gulf Stream being at risk of stopping. My global warming DVD you mentioned in 2008 gave further warning of the Gulf Stream stopping. And on June 12th this past year, it's 2011, June 12th, 2010, the Gulf Stream did in fact stop. Now, there's two ways this is going to go. Either a short mini ice age, which could be several years, 3 years, 5 years, maybe even 8 or 10, or a full-blown ice age. It goes on for a century or more. And there may be some scientists with NOAA that know where this is going. If they do, they're not talking. They're not even admitting that an ice age is beginning. However, that's what's underway. I saw there was a photograph of a home in Ireland where a water pipe was on the outside of the house. Mm-hmm. And of course, it froze and burst because they did not engineer their human-built infrastructure to deal with the kinds of winter that they're having.
Right.
They may, here in the States, people may do such a thing in Florida, have water pipes outside the house, but you build your home for what you expect. You build a roof to withstand a snow load if you anticipate snow of a certain depth. You bury your pipes deep enough to withstand the cold, and that's the major problem with the United Kingdom, England, Ireland, and Scotland. They simply don't bury the pipes deep enough to withstand a winter like Moscow. In Moscow, they bury the pipes 6 to 8 feet deep. In the UK, probably just deep enough that the garden plow doesn't dig it up.
Well, and that's what happened. We have a listener over in Scotland. He listens. As a matter of fact, he's here tonight in the audience. And they're having a hell of a time out there. As a matter of fact, there's thousands of people without fresh water running to their house because all the pipes have burst. And consequently, there's also a problem with sewage because the sewage pipes were buried shallow. And rightfully...
Sewage pipes are a bit different. I grew up. The Moore family business was plumbing. I became a homicide detective. But sewage pipes are don't have water standing still. They're gravity, so they go downhill by gravity, and sometimes they'll have pump stations. Where freshwater pipes have water standing still in them, and that's the difference. Sewage pipes, feet away from the house by gravity. Into other pipes that go by gravity, and that's the whole wastewater system is all gravity. They don't have standing water. Standing water is what freezes. I guess if it's cold enough, if those sewage pipes aren't deep enough, they could freeze also if it really gets cold.
Well, and they're dealing with some pretty substantially cold temperatures out there, and it's been quite a crisis. And at least that's the word that I get from Scotland.
Well, you need water for drinking, bathing, and firefighting.
Oh, exactly right. Exactly right. And you know what's interesting, John? This has so many implications. And Griff, don't we say this all the time? If something like this hits you, it really makes it evident just how unprepared you actually are. Isn't that right?
Sure.
I mean, it is.
Yes.
Thanks, Griff. I was like,
I'm going to have you tonight.
Gentlemen, we build our lives expecting the infrastructure to perform as advertised.
Isn't that right?
We expect our roads to be roads. We expect bridges to be bridges. We expect the water to be water coming out of the tap when you turn it on. And you can't have hundreds of thousands of people living in dense areas without water for drinking, bathing, and firefighting. You simply can't. It's not doable.
That's right. What do you think, Griff? What do you think about what's going on right now?
I agree with everything.
You really should.
I'm playing.
I was going to say, holy moly, man, you're. Oof.
Well, I think we have big problems ahead. Which one do you want to start with? We have about 15 to 20 major. Any one of them can take us down.
Okay, but let's talk about.
Let me ask
Go ahead.
Detective John there. John, why don't we just go and lynch the bastards that are doing this to us?
Well, doing which to us? Which bastards? Doing which?
What are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about
let's talk
the
about
new
the
ice
Gulf
age.
of Mexico first.
Yeah.
Why don't
quite
we just
frankly,
lynch them?
the British, what the British petroleum oil spill most likely was the straw that broke the camel's back. In 2005, we learned that the Gulf Stream would probably stop in 5 to 20 years, on its own, without the help of British petroleum spilling oil. What happened this past spring, 2010, was a straw that broke the back of a very weak, ready-to-break camel's back already. So there is some liability there, obviously, and we can only speculate as to whether they knew what they were doing and the risks they were taking. Apparently, geologists and petroleum geologists have known for some time about this oil deposit under tremendous pressure in this salt dome configuration in the Gulf of Mexico, and they've been avoiding it for many years for the reasons we found out this past spring, the pressures are just beyond current human engineering to deal with.
How did they stop the flow then?
Say again?
How did they stop the flow of oil from the floor?
The reports I'm getting is it hasn't been stopped. The reports I'm getting is it has not been stopped.
Well, I know that. It hasn't stopped, and they're still spraying the Corexit. That's why I suggest let's just go down there and lynch them, because nothing else is going to save us.
You mean pitchforks and torches?
No, it'll take some guns and some rope.
Well, the people responsible are nowhere near the Gulf of Mexico. They're
let's find them.
Walnut-paneled offices in London, walnut-paneled offices in New York City, and Houston, and wherever else they hang out.
If we can get past the inspectors at the airport, we could go to London.
But see, hey Griff, I've got an answer for you. I've got an answer for you, and it's the other hat that John Moore wears is he's a terrorism expert, and so I'm going to present this tonight, and I want to get your feedback on this, John, and tell me if I got something here.
Okay.
But I want to start an organization, and it doesn't have to be a formal organization. Maybe it'll turn into one, kind of like a Tea Party. But I want to start Citizens Against Terrorism. Period. And I want it to be simply by definition. That means that, like, for instance, here's Collins English Dictionary. Terrorism is defined as systematic use of violence and intimidation to achieve some goal. Okay, well, if that's the case, and I use that definition and say, look, guys, members of my organization, the Citizens Against Terrorism are against any use of violence and intimidation to achieve a goal. So does that mean that this can go up and say, hey, look, that's terrorism. What you guys did in the Gulf of Mexico is absolutely terrorism, and we're against it, and we're going to make you know about it. How about the IRS? Is that not terrorism?
How about the airports?
Well, exactly right. The airports. How about getting groped? And is that not intimidating? So in order to gain a little traction here, because I want to use their game against them.
Well, Joe, we're all
be
behind
politically
you.
correct.
We're all
so
behind
let's do
you.
it.
You lead us, and we'll follow you.
I'll do it, and it's going to be called CAT. So CAT.
I knew the
right?
acronym had to be there. Yeah.
That's right. So we got CAT. That's right. So I'm thinking that.
Go ahead,
John. No, please.
I personally, Griff, think that that's the problem, that we're all behind you, Joe. We don't need to be behind him. We need to actually be with him.
I'd rather be behind him.
That's we're losing this war that we're in.
Yes, now see, Griff, there you go. See, now I'm cannon fodder. Okay, fine, all right. If that's the way you want to be, then all right.
But it was your idea, though.
That's why we're in the condition that we're in, because nobody's willing to lay their life on the line for the next successive generation, and nobody's willing to stand together. You go first, I'll go behind you. Well, that's why we're losing our rights on a weekly basis.
Well, you're a brave man to volunteer to do this, Joe.
Well, like I said, somebody's got to do it. So I am going to start the organization CAT. And here we go. And that's what it's going to be. And what a noble thing. Think about it. Citizens Against Terrorism. How cool is that? And
it sounds cool.
Very cool. Very noble.
First person that I'm going up, the first organization that I'm going up against, of course, is the Department of Homeland Security. Damn terrorists.
And then start on WANTA after that.
And that's right. And why? Because they fit the definition. It says right there, systematic use of violence and intimidation to achieve a goal. So why not?
The courts will be on your side, Joe.
You know what? Well, that's what you're here for, Griff, because you've got the family line there to help me and back me up. You've got the insiders. See, so I've got everybody around me that I need in order to make this successful. Now we just got to go do it.
We'll try to bail you out.
It's not that easy. That's the problem. See, an acronym like that, an organization like that, although the intentions are good, you're just not going to get the interest that you need in order to make it effective. So, I mean, I could go out and I can preach to this. I could preach to people all day. We could have the Intel Hub on one side, front of the T-shirt, and CAT on the back. And that's all it would be. People will say, "Oh, ha 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 ha," very funny. That's good. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, but I mean, that's as far as it would ever go. And that just goes to show you just how dire of a situation we're in. And it just doesn't have to be the environment. There's so many different fronts that we're up against here. And any one of them, like you said earlier, Griff, any one of them can have it all come crashing down. It can just crash the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I just use that as an example because I was thinking about this stuff today. I was like, cat, sounds catchy, but that's about all it is, you know. So I don't know. I'm a little bit discouraged as we enter into this new year, and that goes back to why is everybody saying Happy New Year? What the hell is so happy about it? You know, unemployment's at a I don't want to say an all-time high, but it most certainly is at a high level, more so than we've seen in a very long time. We missed it Thursday, Griff, because I had put out some statistics about the national, whatever you call it, debt. You name it. You can call it whatever you want. But I brought out some statistics on just exactly how big a trillion is when you put it together. And
a trillion what?
I didn't say, and I'm not going to say, just a trillion. And the number, trillion, how much it actually is, and what it would take for the federal government to be able to pay this debt back.
To who?
That's it. If they had any intention, they don't.
Pay it back
to
who?
The bondholders, the treasury, the men and women who own the treasury notes.
You're getting sucked in, John. I'm just telling you right now. Before you go any farther, watch out, because Griff is going to get you. He's a snake in the grass.
I think highly of you, John. I would not do that to you.
No, that's who we owe the money to.
He's a snake in the grass.
Well, there is no such thing as dollars. You have promissory notes from a private company that nobody can define, and that's what your money is. But that's not even money, though.
No, but you know, like I was saying on the last show, just let's say if we keep going down this line that we're going, by 2018, just the interest on the national debt's going to be 900 billion Scooby snacks, or whatever you want to call them. Dollars.
I like that, a Scooby smack. I like that.
We used to call the Turkish money that when we were over in Turkey. We couldn't pronounce it, so we just call them Scooby snacks. But the reason why I say this is because just paying $900 billion a year in interest, you just can't do it, and they know this. They absolutely know this, and that's why it's terminal. What we have here is terminal, and I can't see a very logical and methodical conclusion coming to all this outside of a just straight total collapse where we're seeing right now, we're seeing the wealthy, you think they're putting their money in paper? No, they're getting tangible assets. They're getting hundreds of thousands of acres of land. They're buying gold. They're buying silver. They're buying food. And I know one guy just drove the price of cocoa through the roof because he bought the entire world supply of cocoa. You know, keeping it in a warehouse, waiting for the price to jack up enough for him to sell it. But he's doing it because that's where the value is. It's not in paper. They all know this. So I mean, it truly is a terminal situation that we're in. And whether you think it's terrorism or not, that's exactly what it is. It's terrorism. It's intimidation tactics. You know, and to be quite honest with you, Griff, you're not far off the mark. At some point in time here, we're going to be left with no other option.
I'm not far off the mark. I'm right dead on the mark.
Yeah.
That's from the Bible, by the way, on the mark. I think probably one of the smallest, most manageable items to invest in probably would be bullets, ammunition, just for the value of it and for the small, compact size and the demand in the future for that. I think protecting self and family is going to come down to that in pockets all over the country. So I would rather have that than a truckload of gold. You can't do anything when you're in a collapse situation. What the hell are you going to do with a truckload of gold? You know.
No, exactly
but you
right.
certainly can find value in toilet paper and bullets. You know, you really can.
Absolutely right. No, toilet paper and bullets are good. You know, I've always said brass and lead are your two best. Best precious metals to invest in. What do you think, John Moore? What are some of the things that you see as being crucial assets to put your money in at this point in time?
Well, we're talking about barter items here. The ideal barter item is something that's very cheap to buy now, and in the future will be quite valuable. Something that is easy to store, it won't be damaged by heat, won't be damaged by cold. How about something that human beings can't live without? How about salt? Once you're more than 100 miles away from these oceans, salt is not very easy to get during a crisis, and human beings cannot live without salt. Many of the original pioneer fortunes were based on, in fact, locally we had the Daniel Boone family. There's still a road in St. Charles County, Missouri, where the Boones lived, called Boone's Lick Road. The Boone family got to the salt lick first, and they controlled it, and it was one of the bases of the Boone family fortune, was controlling the salt. Right now, you can buy salt almost dirt cheap, quite literally, almost dirt cheap, by the ton for just a couple $100.
Really, by the ton?
By the ton. You can buy salt by the ton, and human beings can't live without it. Cold doesn't affect it. Heat doesn't affect it. If it does get wet, you dry it just as good as new. It's something that's dirt cheap now and potentially quite valuable in the future. Salt has been used as money in the distant past. The Roman army paid their soldiers with salt at one point. So that's a very cheap, easy-to-get commodity that could be a very good future barter item. I agree with Griff on the ammunition. From about a week after the November election, 2008, beginning then and going for about a year, all pistol ammunition and many rifle calibers were bought up and very difficult to get. It took at least a year before supply started catching up with demand. It's an excellent thing to buy. You can go to the most remote village in the Amazon or Alaska, and people will recognize 22 caliber ammunition, 12 gauge shotgun ammunition as being what it is and having value.
You know, when Obama took office and we had this ammo shortage that was going on, some of the things that I noticed was at the peak of it, say like 223 ammunition or the stuff for M16s or M4s were about 50 cents a round, and now it's down to about 31 cents, and you're starting to see the ammunition come back on the shelf. So isn't that's a pretty positive thing when you think about it, because now people can more cheaply stock themselves than they could before. And I don't know what to attribute that to, outside of the fact that it's more that they ramped up production, because I can't see the demand is still there. You know what I mean?
Here's a problem with ammunition. There's multiple problems. The manufacturers consider the wartime demand, which we're in the middle of course, as a temporary matter. They don't want to increase manufacturing capacity, buy new machinery, build new buildings, and hire and train new people for something they consider a temporary condition. So they didn't do that. So that put a lot of pressure on supply there. Pressure on metals prices was driving prices also. And then on top of that, we got the Hussein Obama being elected. And that just took the scales way off the edge for way more than a year. 30 cents a round is still quite expensive for 223. All ammunition is quite high compared to what it was 3 or 4 years ago. You can get it, quite expensive.
No, I agree. I totally agree. And I think that we're going to see an increase again. I just don't know when that will be or how it will be. And we're going to go to break here. And when we come back, folks, we'll continue our conversation with John Moore. So stay tuned. This is Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network. We'll be right back.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues.
What?
Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com. You are listening to the Intel Hub News Network, crushing the New World Order piece by piece. Secure your future. Get your non-hybrid seed pack now. With the looming economic crisis, food shortages, and other toxic disasters, now is the time to be ready. Just click on the Heirloom Organics banner at the top of our Blog Talk Radio page today. Secure your future and the future of your family in hard times. Heirloom Organic Seeds.
Join me, Joe Joseph, John King, and A.C. Griffith, Thursdays and Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern for Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network. Well, folks, we're back, and if I'm picking up again, you guys have to tell me whether or not the audio's getting a little bit better. But we have our special guest, John Moore, who's here, and we're talking about everything from the climate to the past events of 2010 to what we have in store for us in 2011. And there's a whole lot to talk about, you know, when you think about it. How do you hear me coming through? Do you hear me loud and clear?
You're breaking up pretty bad, Joe.
All right. Well, folks, while I go and reconnect, I am going to play you one of my favorite speeches. This is Nigel Farage and his speech on the floor at the EU. Stand by while I go reconnect.
Mr. Co-President Nigel Farage, freedom and democracy.
Well, good morning, Mr. Van Rompuy. You've been in office for 1 year, and in that time, the whole edifice is beginning to crumble. There's chaos. The money's running out. I should thank you. You should perhaps be the pin-up boy of the Eurosceptic movement. But just look around this chamber this morning. Just look at these faces. Look at the fear. Look at the anger. Poor old Barroso here looks like he's seen a ghost. You know, they're beginning to understand that the game is up. And yet, in their desperation to preserve their dream. They want to remove any remaining traces of democracy from the system. And it's pretty clear that none of you have learned anything. You know, when you yourself, Mr. Van Rompuy, say that the euro has brought us stability, I suppose I could applaud you for having a sense of humour, but isn't this really just the bunker mentality? You know, your fanaticism is out in the open. You talked about the fact that it was a lie to believe that the nation-state could exist in a 21st century globalised world. Well, that may be true in the case of Belgium, who haven't had a government for 6 months, but for the rest of us, right across every member state in this union, and perhaps this is why we see the fear in the faces, increasingly people are saying, we don't want that flag, we don't want the anthem, we don't want this political class, we want the whole thing consigned to the dustbin of history. And we had the Greek tragedy earlier on this year, and now we have the situation in Ireland. Now I know that the stupidity and greed of Irish politicians has a lot to do with this. They should never ever have joined the euro. They suffered with low interest rates, a false boom and a massive bust. But look at your response to them. What they're being told, as their government's collapsing, is that it would be inappropriate for them to have a general election. In fact, Commissioner Wren here said they had to agree their budget first before they'd be allowed to have a general election. Just who the hell do you think you people are? You are very, very dangerous people indeed. Your obsession with creating this Euro state means that you're happy to destroy democracy. You appear to be happy for millions and millions of people to be unemployed and to be poor. Untold millions must suffer so that your Euro dream can continue. Well, it won't work, because it's Portugal next. With their debt levels of 325% of GDP, they're the next ones on the list, and after that, I suspect it'll be Spain. And the bailout for Spain would be 7 times the size of Ireland, and at that moment, all of the bailout money has gone. There won't be any more. But it's even more serious than economics, because if you rob people of their identity, if you rob them of their democracy, then all they are left with is nationalism and violence. I can only hope and pray that the Euro project is destroyed by the markets before that really happens.
Okay, folks, we're back. Hopefully the audio's a little bit better. And, John, I mean, you heard what Nigel Farage was saying there, and what we're seeing now is pretty much a systematic collapse over in the EU, where these governments are falling and they're being propped up by money printed out of thin air. And now over in the United States, inflation is starting to creep up. As a matter of fact, I just heard on the news the other day that you'll never see interest rates of 4.5% anymore for a home mortgage. They're gone, and you'll never see them again. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that is one of the imminent threats that we're facing at this point?
Well, there's lots of threats we have. I've got a amortization book here in front of me that was printed. The most recent printing, this copy, was printed in 1983 when I was involved in getting my broker's license. The lowest interest rate in this book was 5%. At the time when the book was printed, mortgages were running in the mid-teens, and that was outrageous.
Right, right.
14, 15%. But people were still buying real estate, and life did not end. What we're seeing in the EU is orchestrated. Major events of this nature are not spontaneous. Anybody, and I know Griff will agree with me on this, any major event of this nature is a contrived, carefully orchestrated event. Nothing is left to chance, and it is not spontaneous. And it is done to achieve a goal. And the goal, apparently, is to destroy these countries as countries and have them replaced with something else. There may be some attempts from countries to withdraw from this EU thing, this monstrosity, and once again become independent. I don't believe it's going to be tolerated. I don't believe that it'll be allowed to happen. They're in the grips, and I don't believe they're going to tolerate it.
Okay, so we have the economy, right? That's the one thing. And then, as Griff pointed out, the Gulf of Mexico is still a very dire situation. Do you think, John, that the Gulf of Mexico situation was orchestrated to bring about the climate changes that we're experiencing to help aid in the collapse of the economy and or collapse of civilization?
As I sometimes say to an attorney when I'm on the witness stand, do you want my sworn speculation, counsel? Here's my sworn speculation. First of all, these people, the oil industry, British Petroleum, they have the ability to consult with the best scientists on the planet. They certainly had access to the same knowledge I did, knowing that the Gulf Stream was very fragile and very much at risk. They had access to the university experiments showing what happens when you introduce oil into a tank of water where warm water is moving through cold water. It breaks down the thermal barrier between the two, and the two start mixing. They had access to all this knowledge. And if they had a goal to create a new ice age as a means to achieve other goals, then certainly they could have done so. All the pieces are in place, and that is my sworn speculation. Yes, they could have had the knowledge and planned this in advance to create a mini ice age. What I refer to my paper at my website, this is the second most important matter in 2,000 years. These other things we talk about, the collapse of the euro, unemployment, possibility even Third World War, are small potatoes compared to the Gulf Stream stopping and the commencement of a new ice age. And that's where we are, gentlemen.
What do you think, Griff?
It would take a long time to adequately address that. That was a good answer, John. I believe that it could be speculation, as you said, up to this point. But if you look at the events in the Gulf right now, it is a fact that it matches Agenda 21. However they got there, it is Agenda 21, and eventually you're going to have millions of sick people, a lot of dead people. The fishing industry is destroyed. The economy of the entire South is destroyed. It's a major event going on down there. But at the same time, we have the money collapse, economic collapse of the United States, and that's orchestrated. All of it's orchestrated. Every bit of it's orchestrated. That's why I said early on, in a serious but joking, serious manner, let's go and lynch the bastards, because we are sitting around talking about the events after the fact. And each new event that comes along, we talk about it, and we sit and watch it happen. And we are watching situations that are going to kill millions of people in the United States. Our country is on the chopping block right now, and we're sitting and talking about it. We need to really seriously consider lynching them. Really, seriously, John?
Well, I understand how security works, and understand that there's chains of command.
We were dying,
say, for example,
John, we're dying. Again? We're dying, and our families are going to die.
The country is dying, and the world is dying.
People are dying. The people, our children, are going to die.
Right. I agree.
And what are we doing?
Well, I know what I'm doing. I'm making preparations to care for my grandchildren and my daughter and her family. That's as much as John Moore can do. That will stretch my ability to the breaking point. I'm not going to load up my squirrel rifle and go after these SOBs.
Well, what good is it going to do? Let me ask you that. What good, and this goes to something that you say all the time, Griff, what good does it do to not survive and see through to the other side? And it all comes back to self and family, which is what John Moore is doing right now. And that sounds basically what you described to me, John, is self and family. You're taking care of yourself and your family, right, and getting ready to weather the storm.
Yes, I agree with that. I understand exactly what you said, John. I'm doing the same thing here, of course. But in the last few days, I want to put it out. My voice is available all over the world now, and I'm keenly aware that I'm potentially, if they want to tune in anywhere in the world to hear what I'm saying. So I'm standing on the stage with bright lights in my eyes. I can't see the audience, and I don't know if any people out there have bows and arrows or slingshots. I'm sure some of them do. But at some point in time, George Washington started off with about 20,000 men, and he wound up about 2,000 when he stormed Trenton in the wintertime, and it was brutal. And they were really in desperate situation with no money, no clothes, no shoes, no nothing, and they were down to about 2,000 men to save the country. Had they not saved the country, had it not gone in their favor, they would have been criminals, and every one of them would have been shot or hanging from a tree limb. The Obama administration is deliberately trying to bring the country down, no question about it. They know very well about the want of money. I spoke to a congressional office some weeks ago, and he said to me regarding the $207 billion owed in tax to the state of Virginia on court documents from the Wanta money, and the judge in a previous case had ordered Wanta to pay the state, and Wanta said he would do it. Then the Fed stole the money out of the Bank of America in Richmond, sent it to New York. The congressional office man said to me, that money is tied up. It's too much trouble to deal with. What the hell is he talking about? $207 billion owed the state of Virginia? That's just a piece of what's causing the world to collapse. And the congressional office said, Griff, that money is tied up. It's too hard to deal with it. They know exactly what's causing the world economy to fail. Now, $27 trillion off the books at 5% interest, and that's off the books too. That's why it took so long for it to come down, and nobody's talking about it. Joe, I want to put on the record also that we have interviewed people here, and I have talked to people off the air that are in newsletters and economic matters and banking. They know damn well what the truth is, and not a one of them will go there. Not a one of them. The Congress knows what the truth is about the want of money, and they will not go there. They will lie to the people, and that's what's happening. It's happening on all fronts. We are being lied to on all fronts, from the Corexit in the Gulf to the temperature changes to the scalar weather manipulation that the Secretary of Defense. You know, everybody forgets about that. Why do they forget the Secretary of Defense in '97 said that the terrorists are now manipulating climates and setting off earthquakes in the United States? And they've totally ignored that. And that's what's happening. But it's like that across the board with all of these issues. The real power, the real cause behind all of this is never discussed.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing, Griff, how the stream of information is so controlled, and people just they believe anything that's fed to them. Really, if you think about it, I mean, this audience here, of course, is an exception, but the amount of free thinking, critical thinking people out there it's truly dwindling, and we're going to be faced with a survival of the fittest scenario that people just are not going to be ready for. That's because right. They're not going to be. Nature's going to take its course in one way, shape, or form, and we're going either we be the squirrels that stow away the nuts for the winter, or we're not, and we're caught on the other side of it, and that's a whole other ball of wax. And I'd hate to be on the other side.
So many people don't know what we're talking about, Joe. They just don't know. They just don't have any idea what we're talking about. No. Joe, did you get the email I sent you about an hour ago about Jefferson Davis?
I haven't been on my email in the last 6 hours or so.
Well, let me just put this out as a point of history. Okay. I've mentioned over the past months things in history that have been manufactured and lied about in history books in schools. I'd sent you information about the little boy that Jefferson Davis and his wife Verina adopted. It was about 1862, 1863, while he was president of the Confederacy. And his name was Jim Limber. I want everybody to research that, Jimlimber, Jim Limber. He was a colored boy. He was a black boy. And they adopted him, and he grew up with their children at the White House of the Confederacy here in Richmond. Did you know that?
Well, you've told me that before. You've told me. I knew that only because you've told me that. But
there's so much in history like that.
Right.
And we're still being lied to today about the Gulf and everything else, and about the money collapse. Everything is a lie. I'm overwhelmed sometimes with it.
Well, it's kind of like when we had G. Edward Griffin on, and I was bringing up his interview with Norman Dodd, and the whole conspiracy that Norman Dodd unearthed when he was the special counsel or the special investigator for Congress, this congressional investigation into the endowments and the nonprofit organizations looking into un-American activity. And what he found out was simply that they were trying, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Guggenheim, all these nonprofit organizations were in bed with each other, putting these people through school and getting their PhDs to form the American Historical Society and have them systematically rewrite the history books so that our children knew the abridged version of history, and much of the falsehoods that we are being fed even to this day.
Yes.
So it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, this stuff has been going on as long as I can remember it. It goes way back. We're talking probably since the beginning of time. These people in power have to rewrite history. Why? Because the people who pay attention to history know that if you follow history, then you're good. Then you have a track record. You have a testament, if you will, that helps you avoid making the same mistakes twice. Well, these warmongers, these people who hunger for power, and it's been like this for millennia, know that the only way they can do it again is to rewrite history so that the sheeple who go to school and eat what they're given and they feed from the public trough of knowledge, they will not know what history really was. And here we go again. So if you look at the unabridged version of history, you can see that we've been through all of this over and over and over again.
It's time to stop.
Yes, it is. It most certainly is time to stop. It's time to understand what history really is and what it's all about. And John Moore, I mean, we've been through an ice age before in our country's history, haven't we?
Well, in fact, during the time of the American Revolution, we had what's called a mini ice age in the Northern Hemisphere, which is widely given credit for the French Revolution as well, because of the starvation that was going on in France. We're already seeing a winter in Europe that's worse than the worst part of that mini ice age. The worst winter in the United Kingdom since they've kept records. The worst winter in Norway since 1788, 222 years, just before the beginning of the last mini ice age. Worst winter in Germany in memory. Worst winter in Moscow for 1,000 years. Charles de Gaulle Airport shut down because the roof was about to collapse from a snow load. It doesn't take much snow to really screw things up in Paris, by the way. Having snow in Paris is about like having snow in Atlanta. They just simply can't deal with it. They don't have the shovels, the infrastructure. Nothing is set up in Paris, France, to deal with more than a half inch of snow.
Hey, John, we just got 16.3 inches of snow here down in South Carolina, and it was so bad that a good friend of mine, now mind you, in my neck of the woods, the redder the neck, the better. And he came by with his he had his truck with a 6-inch lift and 35-inch tires, and just came screaming down my dirt road because right. I was stuck in my own driveway.
Oh yeah.
We don't get that much snow here.
No.
I have never ever seen that much snow here, and I'll go take it a step further. We were getting temperatures that we see maybe a couple of days out of the year in February, late January, early February, in the first week of winter. And it's been going on for a month now where I'm seeing lows in the teens. One morning I got in my car, the low was 9 degrees. And we're not even into winter yet, really, if you think about it.
Well, the first day of winter was December 21st.
Right.
And so we're only into the second week of winter.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. Right.
John King, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, good. Now, we're talking about, the climate, of course. And what do you think? What do you think what next year is going to bring? What's 2011 going to bring? And I'll pose this to you and then John Moore, because John King has been doing a lot of research into this as well, and has come up with some pretty amazing predictions, I guess you could say, about what 2011 looks like as far as the weather's concerned. So, John King, what do you think is going to happen in the next year?
I think we're going to have a very short summer. It's going to be much cooler, and we're going to have an early winter, which is going to be long and drawn out. The northern hemisphere is going to slowly cool off due to the depth of the Gulf current. The Arctic weather is going to drop further south, even as far south as the southern tip of Spain. And those people that are in northern Europe, well, they're going to think that they've just moved in next door to Santa Claus.
John Moore, what do you think about that?
Well, I've had other people giving very similar prognostications. I've got a regular caller on my show from Canada. He observed winter up there starting about 6 weeks early. All the animals and the plant life were all doing the things that they would typically do 6 to 8 weeks before they normally would do it. I think in the United Kingdom, if you own real estate, if you're listing in the United Kingdom and you can sell it, if you sell it now, you might be able to. But as soon as 3 months from now, people may figure out that you can't live in those areas anymore. Your real estate may have almost no value very quickly.
So what would you say, John Moore, if I coordinated to have you debate Al Gore?
Well, if Al Gore and I were off the record in a conference room by just the two of us, I would just confront him flat on about the lies and deception to keep the truth away from the American people and away from the world about what's really going on. The message he puts out is the same message NASA puts out, the NASA Goddard Space Flight Institute, about rising ocean levels and violent climate change 40 years in the future, the middle of the century. They say what's going to happen, they just give the wrong timetable, and of course they attribute it to human activity, creating CO2 greenhouse gases, which of course is a complete fabrication as well, when in fact these Earth changes are due to the 10th planet coming deeper into our solar system and affecting everything: volcanism, seismic activity, and bizarre, dangerous, violent weather events. Now that the Gulf Stream is screwed up and stopped, well, the jet stream is screwed up, and the jet stream is trying to re-regulate itself without the Gulf Stream being present. And that's what we're seeing right now, is a jet stream that's out of control, bringing these Arctic weather conditions into South Carolina, of all places.
It's crazy.
It is. It is.
It's crazy. Georgia had their first white Christmas since 1882. Right. Charleston, South Carolina, first one on record that they've ever had.
Joe, what we're seeing, and I encourage people to watch the film The Day After Tomorrow. We're seeing the scenario of The Day After Tomorrow played out in slow motion, literally. The premise of The Day After Tomorrow is the Gulf Stream stops. That's the premise of the movie. And it kicks in a matter of a few days what we're going to see play out over a year, maybe 2 or 3 years. So we're seeing the scenario of the Hollywood feature film, The Day After Tomorrow, being played out in slow motion in front of our eyes right now.
You gotta wonder. You gotta wonder with all these films that they put out there, like The Day After Tomorrow, or movies like The Road. Have you seen that one, John?
Oh, I have a copy of it, and a friend of mine, Command Sergeant Major Page, who just got back from a one-year tour in Africa doing intelligence work, his wife had that and several other films, and he looked at that and he said, John, that's our future.
But do you see what I'm saying? They have a ring of truth, and you have to wonder, these script writers, where are they getting their inspiration from?
Well, they're connected. It's a, the club of people who are connected is relatively small, and they are connected. And sometimes I think they put out these films like The Day After Tomorrow or The Road or The Book of Eli as a way of entertaining themselves and entertaining their friends who are in the know. They have the financial ability to do so, so why not? They find it entertaining.
There was a movie out there, Knowing, I think it was called, that had the platform down in the Gulf on fire. Have you seen that one too, John?
No, this is the one with, who was the star in it?
Nicolas Cage, I think it was.
Yeah, I did see it. I need to watch it again because some of these films, now I watched The Day After Tomorrow again after I found out that the Gulf Stream had stopped this past summer. We verified it, I think it was towards the end of July this past year, we verified the Gulf Stream had stopped. Watching a film after you have knowledge about it coming true, the film takes on a whole new meaning once you have that knowledge under your belt. And so watching The Knowing again, it was a well-done film, by the way, with the little girl and the message, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Very well done film. And Nicolas Cage has done several films that appear to have insider information about the Masonic Order and different things of that nature. So he's working with a group of men and women who are connected also.
Yeah, it's very interesting, extremely interesting. And, folks, when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with John Moore and A.C. Griffith. All that and more when we come back. This is Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network. Stay tuned.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently, he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com.
Are you still paying your credit cards and so-called bank loans thinking that you owe the money? Do you feel like it's your moral obligation but can't see an end in sight? Well, what if I told you that in truth, you don't owe a single penny, and that the banks know this and hope you don't find out? Here's where we come in. Free2Prosper.com specializes in a profound debt repudiation method which challenges the validity of your so-called debts, morally frees you from the burdens, and protects your property. Our system is often superior to settlement, bankruptcy, or consolidation, which often leave you in a worse situation. If you feel the moral obligation to take care of yourself and your family, then I urge you to consider taking action right now. The economy will not wait. If you want to know more so you can prosper through the economic collapse, all while staying honorable and true to yourself, then call 877-417-8393. That's 877-417-8393. Or visit free2prosper.com right now.
Make sure and listen to the P.A. Monsanto Show every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Intel Hub News Network.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
All right, folks, we're back with our special guest, John Moore. The number to call if anybody has any questions or comments, 877-598-8549. That's 877-598-8549. Before we get back into our topic of discussion, it's 9 o'clock, so 9 o'clock Eastern, of course. I will give the floor over to John King and the King's Court as soon as he's ready to rock. I will say, folks, that the show is on Thursdays and Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so please tune in, tell everybody you know, come on out and listen to the show, because in this new year we're going to be trying to hit this hot and heavy to make people understand just how dire of a situation it is, you know, and it doesn't look like John's quite ready yet. So with that said, John Moore, what do you think about I've seen a lot of NASA communique. I've also seen some very interesting news articles come out about the solar activity. Do you attribute that to Wormwood, the 10th planet, or is it cyclical? What do you think?
Well, the answer is yes and yes. First of all, I'm a homicide detective, not a scientist. I defer to the real scientist, Professor McCanney, Professor James McCanney, who, by the way, he should be your guest also. He's done original research and developed his theories over the past 30 years, going back to Cornell University when he had access to the NASA feeds, satellite feeds coming in real time. NASA publicly states that space is electrically neutral. Professor McCanney's experiments and theories have proven true that, in fact, our solar system and the galaxy is full of electricity, that our solar system is a huge electrical capacitor, which is another word for a battery. And any large object that comes in, as large as a 10th planet, is going to cause electrical disruptions in our solar system, as well as interacting with gravity on all these planets. Now, as most people know, almost all our weather, obviously HAARP can change weather a little bit here and there, but most 99% of our weather is a consequence of energy coming at us from our sun. And that solar activity is changing due to this interaction with the 10th planet. And it is cyclical, yes, it is cyclical. Every 3,600 years, this object swings through our solar system and creates havoc with planet Earth. It doesn't hit planet Earth, it doesn't have to. It interacts with our planet and with our sun and the other planets with electrical energy and with gravity, creating all these effects that we're experiencing right now. Dramatic increases in volcanism, dramatic increases in the severity and number of earthquakes, and all this violent, bizarre weather activity that we're seeing, including the events that led up to the Gulf Stream stopping. Now, if the Gulf Stream had been at full force, as it had been for so many centuries, the oil spill probably would not have been enough to shut it down. But it was very much at risk and very fragile when the oil spill happened, and it was enough to break it and stop it. And I sometimes joke about getting 3 or 4 aircraft carriers at anchor with the screws turning, pointing towards Europe to get the Gulf Stream going again. But that's not going to happen.
No. That's a drop in the bucket if you think about it.
It is, and humans can't do anything to restart the Gulf Stream. That's just not going to happen. It's broken. It's stopped. It's pretty much over. And the only thing we're waiting for now is to find out how bad and how quickly the ice age is going to be.
Right. Well, with that said, let's take a break for a second. And John King, let's get the King's Court knocked out, shall we? Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Joe. Well, it's the new year, people, and we have started the year end with the wrap-ups, and I want to tell you how I think the year went. Well, I can tell you it didn't go so well. You see, this is a war for your mind as of yet. They, that is the New World Order, is treating this like a war against the common man. The problem is, we, the common man, are treating this as an alternative news PR campaign or a popularity contest. We need to change our tactics. We're losing. It's as evident as the nose on your face. If you can't see that, then you're definitely not awake. We're losing our rights and our liberties on a monthly and at most times on a weekly basis. Now, does that seem like the American people and the common folk of the world are winning against the elitist terrorist regime called the New World Order? It's time to make a change in how we're dealing with these criminals. I call a spade, and the New World Order is a terrorist organization, and those who support it are traitors to their own respective countries as the New World Order seeks to undermine national sovereignties. We need to drop back only so little and make a few changes and continue the good fight. Join us and help us make a difference in 2011. Don't just sit back and listen, but participate. Tell others about us and let us inform them. If they won't listen to you, maybe they'll listen to us. Complacency is obedience. Think for yourselves and for ourselves objectively and remain grounded. Don't follow those fantastic voyages of faith that require no hard proof or fuzzy science. It is the job of the enemy when they're winning to keep things status quo and to criticize anyone or anything that is a threat to what they term as mainstream normalcy. Divide and conquer. It's working for them, and we need to set aside our differences and unite under one banner to achieve that common goal, or continue to fail miserably and lose what rights and liberties we have left. If you don't know what to do to help awaken others, then ask us, and let us help you down that road to freedom and victory in 2011. Joe and Griff, back to you.
Thank you, John. And before we get back into the conversation, once again, let's go to the phones. And our first caller tonight is Ken from British Columbia. Ken, you're live on the air with John Moore.
Hi there, John.
Hey, Ken.
I just want to congratulate you on predicting the death of the Gulf Stream. You were right on. It was caused by British Petroleum with their massive oil spill from the Deepwater Horizon. And what you're seeing now in Great Britain with the massive snowstorms and the cold weather that they're having there, is the result of the death of the U.S. Gulf Stream going up the eastern seaboard and into the Atlantic Ocean there. And earlier in November, I believe that there was somebody launching an ICBM off the coast of California there, namely a Chinese sub. I was wondering whether you could, with you being used to be special forces, how the Chinese government is viewing the North Pacific as a military operation, as you being formerly of special forces.
Well, okay, Ken, thank you. The North Pacific is not the primary focus of Red China at the moment. I'll just give you a quick heads up here. I had on my Sunday show about 6 weeks ago Command Sergeant Major Page, who just got back from doing intelligence work for the past year in Central Africa. The People's Liberation Army is building a highway from China through the Hindu Kush, that's that part of Afghanistan that touches the Chinese border, through Afghanistan into Iran, across Iran into Iraq, across Saudi Arabia, and then across the Suez Canal into Africa, where they end up in Central Africa. They've got an aircraft carrier task force off the coast of the west coast of Africa right now. In fact, there's several from the United States, Great Britain, China, doing these 50-mile circles out there in the ocean off the east coast of Africa. They're putting all the chess player pieces are being put in place for what could be called the beginning of World War III. China fully intends to occupy Central Africa. It's hard to say what's going to happen with India and China. They have some problems with each other. But the North Pacific, they're not all that concerned about it. They have troops and equipment stationed in Canada. They have troops and equipment stationed in Mexico, the Chinese, and the Russians, both, by the way. Probably pre-staged for an invasion of the Great Plains area, the grain-growing belt of the United States at some future date. I can't say when that would happen, but it seems to be almost inevitable. A lot of speculation, Ken, about what will be happening in 2011. None of it good. That's why I focus so much on preparedness. We can't predict the future. We can control being set up to take care of ourselves and our loved ones, however, and that's where I believe people's focus should be, regardless of what the scenario is, whether it's the beginning of a new ice age or the beginning of World War III or a complete and total economic collapse and breakdown. Being prepared is just a good thing to do, whether one scenario or the other happens.
You know, it's interesting, John. I've been doing a lot of research into prophecy, and I mean, everything that's going on is kind of it fits to a T. Whether you read, the I Ching, the Bible, the ancient Aztec, the Mayans, it doesn't matter what it is. We're all right there. But one thing that rings in that I find that's uniform across the board is that we are all creatures of our own free will. That's what we are, and evil exists in the mind and in the human mind. You know, if you take a look in the animal kingdom, evil really doesn't exist. You don't have these maniacal bears trying to take over Jellystone Park. You know, it doesn't work that way. They don't understand good and evil. They just know how to.
They don't.
So this is where this is how we have to take this. Is that we control our destiny. We do. And we can just as easily say, no, we're not going to take part or participate in this anymore. You know, Griff, just like you say quite often about, well, how about we hold these people accountable for what they've done? Well, we could take it a step further than that. How about we just stop going to work? How about we stop paying taxes? How about we do that? Stop withholding taxes from your check, or start arresting them.
That's a good idea. But I really genuinely believe that it applies to what we're facing. I've done this before in life on a big scale, and I've been very successful with it. Instead of having the camera crews in the Gulf, for instance, as an example, filming and putting pictures up on YouTube or on the internet, and then going back and making more pictures and putting them up and making more pictures and writing columns, which proves nothing. You go after the political people in government that have to do with those issues. You find out where they live, and you go after them in the press. You go after them directly. You learn everything there is to know about them, and you attack them on a political level, and you communicate with them, and you make them get off their ass and do something for the benefit of the people. Otherwise, we're all going to die in our own blood.
No, I agree 100%, Griff. And what stuns me is the absolute lethargy that exists in our country today. But at the same time, I look at history, and the United States has always been slow to wake up. It's been that way for a long time.
It's too late right now.
Well, exactly right. I mean, the past 30 years, we've really dug ourselves a tremendous hole. And it's really sad because it could have been avoided. But the fact of the matter is whether you talk about the economical front or the weather front, it doesn't matter what it is. We're really at this point just waiting to see what the heck happens. In what form does the collapse come? You know, and that's just it. It's kind of like the bombs went off, and we're just waiting to see what the fallout's going to be. You know what I mean? Or waiting for impact.
We're seeing right now the inflation, and in cases, some cases, the hyperinflation at stores, and the lack of jobs. So that's with us right now. There are people that are having a hard time buying food and keeping their house warm. That's happening right now, and then the other issues on top of that. So we don't have time. I would say that if people are not awake and on top of these issues now, they're not going to be. One question I wanted to ask you, John Moore, as to separate from John King, John Moore. What do you believe? What do you think your chances are, you and your family, of coming through the Holocaust that's coming upon us? Do you think you and your family will survive?
I believe we will.
Why do you think that?
Well, first of all, we have a faith in our Maker. We have a faith in God that God will protect us.
Mm-hmm.
And with that foundation as a beginning point, and having a very positive attitude that anything can be overcome and anything can be overcome, I believe it is doable. I really do.
Do you believe millions of people will die in the United States?
Absolutely. The Georgia Guidestones tell it very well. They expect a kill-off of everyone but 500 million people on the planet. And part of it will happen inadvertently. Others parts that will be contrived with biological weapons in warfare. War is not a very efficient killer of people, by the way, but biological weapons are, and mass starvation and lack of clean water will kill people quicker than any war would. The area I'm in, the Arkansas-Missouri Ozarks, is relatively sparsely populated. It has a good growing season. No major cities nearby. So we've got an excellent chance down here in these hills. I'm surrounded by people that I know and trust, and we will work together as a community. The island concept of a family standing alone is fatally flawed in most cases. You have to be part of a community, and the community has to stand together. That's the way people will survive.
Exactly right. You know, you think the self and family mentality is good for the preparation process, but once you get past that preparation process, and really part of that preparation process should also be networking with your surrounding area and making sure that you kind of align yourself with like-minded people, and part of that is getting your location down. You know. John, you've got a great location where you're at. I moved out of the city into a very sparsely populated area, and the people that are here are very like-minded individuals, much like myself. As a matter of fact, I went outside yesterday. I was doing some trying to get my swales dug out so that I could get some drainage going, because that 16.3 inches of snow that came down melted pretty much all at once yesterday,
right,
as it was like 64 degrees. And all you heard all around was nothing but gunfire everywhere. That was it. It sounded like there was a war going on, and all they were trying to do was spook the deer and get them out. But the fact of the matter is if you heard one shot, just one shot in the city, could you imagine what would befall you if you did that? But
it depends on the city and what part of the city.
Exactly right. But the mindset there is totally different than where I am, where you hear it and it doesn't matter. I mean, where I am now, John, we have I don't want to call it a police department, but we have one sheriff and 6 deputies to cover 334 square miles.
Right.
And that's a lot of land and territory to cover for only 7 people.
Yeah, that's probably one guy on at nights, and then 2 in the afternoon, and maybe 2 or 3 in the daytime.
Exactly right. Yep. And but the whole concept is everybody's armed to the teeth. So you come over into our neck of the woods, in our house, you're not welcome. Guess what? Justice will be served. And
yes, our local sheriff in my county, when he was elected, he worked on starting a neighborhood watch, and he got to the most remote part of the county in the extreme southwest corner, and he found that the citizens had organized the neighborhood watch and had it going for years and hadn't even bothered to tell the sheriff's department. So, these guys got their pickup trucks and radios and guns, and they just take care of business.
And that's right. When I first got here, I was kind of taken aback at every truck and every car has an antenna on it. I'm not talking about AM, FM. Right. I mean, some of them have some elaborate RF antennas on there, and they have quite a communications network set up. And isn't that, Griff, I mean, you're a ham radio guy, and have been associated with that for a very long time now.
60
Survival,
years.
Right, survival communications is like one of the key things that we're going to have to worry about, because when the internet goes down and telephones go down and everything else goes down, what do you have?
I agree. I've been a ham operator myself since 1994, and it's one of the most overlooked parts of preparation. Civilians simply don't understand how important radios are, what they need, what they don't need, how to make a radio work effectively. My 4-year-old grandchildren can operate cellular telephones, but operating a ham radio effectively requires a bit of knowledge and training, and people simply don't get it.
People don't get it.
No.
They just don't get it. I mean, but how many things do you overlook? Griff, you brought up a good thing months back where we said just turn the main breaker off in your house and sit in the middle of your house and then figure out what the heck it is you overlooked.
I haven't found one person that will do that.
I did it.
Did you?
It's
scary,
horrible.
isn't it?
It's horrible.
It is. I had no electricity for a week here 2 years ago. It's not fun. I dealt with it. My wife was in St. Louis, but I dealt with it. And I prepared meals, and I bathed myself, and I cooked, and brushed my teeth. And I did all those normal things. I just did them a little bit differently.
Yeah, and see, here's my problem. This is my dilemma that I'm kind of working through right now. My dilemma is simply a 300-foot well that requires 240 volts. It needs a 240-volt service to run the pump. And consequently, I also have a septic system that requires power to push it out because my land doesn't perk well enough to have a standard septic system. So there's no flushing toilets. There's no running water. You want to talk about being exposed. When I did that and figured all that out that first time, holy moly. You know, it's quite a eye-opening scenario when you do it. You know.
Oh yes, absolutely. So how did you resolve that, Joe?
I'm still working on some of that right now. I haven't resolved every issue because 240 volts.
Well, let me give you a heads up.
Sure.
This will be for everybody, not just for you, Joe. What the typical guy or gal will do is go down to the hardware store and pick up a 5 kilowatt or 6 or 7 kilowatt gasoline-powered genset and store up maybe 10 or 20 gallons of fuel, and they think they're all set. Which short term, that'll work for a few days. Long term, that won't work for a number of reasons. First of all, gasoline and diesel are not the way you want to power your generator. You want propane. Once you get to about a 7.5 or 8 kW, most of these gensets have a conversion kit. Gasoline gensets have a conversion kit to run on propane. Propane never goes bad. Gasoline goes bad. After a few months, it starts to turn, and if you let your gas dry out in your carburetor, you just got a mess. It needs a professional rebuild. So first of all, you want a propane genset. Second of all, for long term, you want to set up a system where you've got a bank of batteries, preferably Edison batteries, which I'll get into in a moment, and an inverter to actually run everything 23 hours a day off the batteries, recharging the batteries 1 hour a day. So let's say you've got 500 gallons of fuel and you consume your fuel at 1/2 gallon per hour. Well, that's 1,000 hours, which you can divide that by 168 and see how many weeks it'll last. 168 hours in a week. If you have a bank of batteries and you use your genset 1 hour a day, you've suddenly got 1,000 days of electricity instead of 1,000 hours. Big difference, isn't it? Huge difference.
It most certainly is. John King, you've done a lot of prep work. Can you elaborate on this at all?
Yeah, sure. I got a wind turbine that spins in the wind out on my backyard, charging my battery bank. I've got 2 banks of solar cells plugged into my battery bank. I also have a gasoline generator, and I have accounted for just about everything that I could possibly think of power-wise. I even have 20 gallons of kerosene with some hurricane lanterns ready to go in case of power failure, so I can light my home as an Oshman would without electricity. And I was put to the test here about 2 weeks ago as the end of my sewer pipe froze, and I was not able to use my facilities. Well, to make a long story short, and without going into too much detail, a 5-gallon bucket and Walmart disposed garbage bags work really, really well in a tight pinch.
Always entertaining, John. We're going to go to break, and when we come back, folks, we'll continue. We'll be in the home stretch with John Moore, so stay tuned. This is Joe Joseph, Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network. Stay tuned.
I saw my best friend tonight, so don't push me too hard.
A very wealthy U.S. citizen is predicting that in 2011, we will witness the most important day in America in more than 50 years. He says it will change everything about our lives. The way you shop, travel, invest, educate your children, and even how you take care of your health and family. Now this man has made some outrageous predictions over the years, but the crazy part is he's usually right. You see, he predicted the collapse of GM, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, a few years ago. In fact, Baronis called his work a dire prophecy. Now, this has nothing to do with the stock market, but it could have a huge impact on almost every aspect of your life. And recently he created a video which you can watch online for free, detailing his biggest and most important prediction yet. And it's a real eye-opener. I can't stress this enough. You should at least watch this free video online today. He explains everything you need to know, including simple steps you can take to protect yourself. You can find the video at www.endofamerica8.com. Although this video may be offensive to some audiences, it's worth checking out. Again, that's www.endofamerica8.com. Watch this free video at www.endofamerica8.com.
Are you still paying your credit cards and so-called bank loans thinking that you owe the money? Do you feel like it's your moral obligation but can't see an end in sight? Well, what if I told you that in truth, you don't owe a single penny, and that the banks know this and hope you don't find out? Here's where we come in. Free2Prosper.com specializes in a profound debt repudiation method which challenges the validity of your so-called debts, morally frees you from the burdens, and protects your property. Our system is often superior to settlement, bankruptcy, or consolidation, which often leave you in a worse situation. If you feel the moral obligation to take care of yourself and your family, then I urge you to consider taking action right now. The economy will not wait. If you want to know more so you can prosper through the economic collapse, all while staying honorable and true to yourself, then call 877-417-8393. That's 877-417-8393. Or visit Free2Prosper.com right now.
Make sure and listen to the P.A. Monsanto Show every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Intel Hub News Network.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
You won't walk with me. I'm bound to come down with the new style. Rock and roll is up known as reggae music. Gonna come down with the new lyrics, cause it just ain't no thing. Oh, I said
All right, folks, we're back with John Moore. Anybody has a question or a comment they want to add to the conversation? The number 877-598-8549. That's 877-598-8549. Again, in the home stretch here. And, well, John, I mean, 2011, we have civil unrest in some countries out there. We have the potential for civil unrest here at any given time, although sometimes I wonder just exactly if that'll ever come to fruition the way some people are or most people are. But I'm looking at the weather. I'm looking at everything else and how it's adding up. I'm looking at the way that a food shortage can happen at any given time, and quickly. Yeah, I mean, some things can really come to fruition quickly. So how long, based on your give me your expert speculation on how long do you think it's going to take for things to really go south?
Well, it's a difficult question. I generally don't give dates unless I'm really sure of a date.
Right. No, and I don't either.
And we have a time frame of being at risk. The time frame, of course, is right now.
Mm-hmm.
if you're in Detroit and you've lost your job and several homes on your block are burned down, you're in the middle of a severe crisis already. If you're in the United Kingdom and all your pipes are frozen and burst when everything thaws out, you're in a crisis right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the best way to answer your question, Joe, is that there's no way to predict. In my opinion, there's no way to predict how quickly there will be a general crisis as opposed to localized crisis or individual crisis. If you're out of work or working, you may have a master's degree and you're working at a fast food restaurant. There's lots of individual crises. We do not have a generalized crisis nationwide or worldwide yet. Mm-hmm. I think that's the question you're asking. When will these individual or localized crises become a regional or national crisis? All the pieces are in place for that to happen, either with the economy or World War III or nuclear devices going off in American cities, or these weather events just becoming so out of control. In fact, I sent you an email a couple of hours ago about these bizarre events happening in central Arkansas. Hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes, 3 and 4 a day, near Guy, the G-U-I, Guy, Arkansas, which is about 40, 50 miles north of Little Rock. One of my correspondents, Lucas, who is a great researcher, he's looked on Google Earth, and it appears to be a large caldera, the terrain there. Mm-hmm. And 1,000, 2,000 birds dropping out of the sky, a massive fish kill about 100 miles away. These are all well-known precursors to earthquakes, unexplained things of this nature. Fish kills, bird kills, strange animal behavior, earthquakes, a whole swarm of earthquakes going on most of 2010 are all well-known precursors to a major earthquake, or possibly even a volcanic eruption in central Arkansas. Now, wouldn't that be news?
Yeah, and it almost sounds like a scalar event too, doesn't it, Griff?
Yes, it is. It is. Your earthquakes are going off east of Oklahoma City and over in Arkansas on a regular basis. They are also off and on over the power plants in East Tennessee in a diagonal line from Oak Ridge down. So it's the Russian scalar application on earthquakes, weather, and a whole lot more. I wanted let me take this opportunity to say one thing, Joe, early on about your septic tank. I moved up to northern Michigan some time ago on the Canadian border, bought 2 houses and 10 acres of land, and the land didn't perk. So everybody up there in northern Michigan puts their septic on top of the ground and builds a hill, and you have to have a toilet in the second story of the house or elevated above the terrain so it'll gravity feed into the septic, and you build the whole septic system on top of the ground. It works very well.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I don't have anything near like that. Actually, I have a 3-stage. It actually is a mini sewage treatment plant that it has 3 tanks. You have a soil tank, brown water, and clear water. By the time it gets to the 3rd stage, it's clear water, and then it just pushes the water out into your leach field. All that I ever put out into the leach field is clear water. There is no poo water, I guess you could say, that gets put out there. But in order to accomplish that, I need a pump to be able to force it out into the leach field, and that's just one of those dilemmas, that you got to work through. But of course, that may be a drawback, but the benefits and the advantages that I have to being where I am right now just totally outweigh that. I mean, it's really a non-factor, if you ask me. I mean, I can work through it.
You'll work it out when you have to.
Absolutely. I will most certainly do that. Let's
and
go to
lighting.
the phones.
All of lighting should be LEDs. LED is the way to
sure.
go.
Very energy
with,
efficient.
Low current draw, and stay on the low lumen side. You want it just enough light to break through the darkness and reserve your power. Edison batteries are wonderful if you have the bucks. If you don't have the bucks, then second choice would be just marine deep cycle batteries like 400 amp hour. That's a little pricey. That's like $300 a battery. If not, go steal a battery out of somebody's car.
That's what it'll come down to if there's a breakdown in society. But let's go to the phones. I've got Kathy in Florida. Kathy, you're live on the air with John Moore, AC Griffith, and myself.
Hi, necessity is the mother of invention, and I'm glad you guys are on the air. What we need to do is take back the media. Now, how do you suppose we can do that? Fox News won the right to lie in the Supreme Court here in the state of Florida, so they're really basically the Jerry Springer News. And that's why the American people are so uninformed, not to mention they're dumbing down in the government training centers. And they've been successful at keeping everybody in the dark about what's going on around the planet. So how do we take the media back?
You don't.
I don't know, John. I was going to say, there's like 7 or 8 people that own the entire media, worldwide media establishment, you know?
We make our own media.
And that's what we're doing. You know, the lovely thing about alternative media is that, well, thank you to the Internet, I don't think the powers that be really gamble or had it in the cards that the Internet would be so effective in creating this alternate media that we have now. And to be quite honest with you, the mainstream media, albeit is extremely powerful and it's got a lot of people fleeced. Thanks to the birth of this alternative media, there are a lot of people that are getting their news just by passing it along, almost like a carrier pigeon in a way, kind of futuristic. Don't you think, John Moore?
Absolutely. And I agree with Griff that creating our own alternatives to the mass media is what we can do, is what we are doing. I've heard it said, and I think there's some truth to it, that the New World Order will destroy the Internet, or the Internet will destroy the New World Order. There's no precedence in recorded history of barefoot peasants like you and me having this kind of access to information and instant communication.
Right.
They've always controlled it very effectively. The numbers are dropping. CBS numbers are so low, it's embarrassing. Katie Couric, I mean, who wants to watch her do the news?
No, of course, it's awful. It's absolutely it's torturesome to have to sit through something like that. You're absolutely right. It's absolutely.
This fellow gave it. It was a Club of Rome or one of those, and he looked petrified about the fact that the peasants were gathering online, and that's why the Homeland Security declared it a bigger threat than Al Qaeda. Huh? Interesting. People
of course,
chatting with each other.
But that's why we have to get CAT established. Don't you understand? Citizens Against Terrorism. That's what we have to do. Let's get CAT established and take the power back. We'll take care of them.
Okay, good. I'm so glad you guys are here. Thanks a bunch.
Joe, when are your T-shirts going to become available?
I don't know. We'll work on that, but I will most certainly figure something, but that's about all, it's going to be. Cause it'll be me and a couple other people, and we'll be cannon fodder, and that'll be it. Right. But, we'll give it a shot. Now, but she had a good, and I want to expand on this for 1 second, because there really is power. The peasants really do have power. And I'll give you an example. I'm not one that boasts numbers. I don't really keep track of numbers. I don't really care about numbers, but I'll give you an idea, because this is the kind of stuff that just to illustrate how much you get out. Now, you guys can all look on this chat room and see that up in the chat room it says 68 users. So 68 users are in that chat room at any given time. Now, this broadcast is mirrored on I can't remember how many websites, but case in point, when all said and done, at the end of the show, I can go on to Blog Talk Radio and look at the numbers, and I'll see that probably about 200 or 250 people listen to this live. Okay, and then you have the archive listens. That's where people listen to the show afterwards. And it can range anywhere. Sometimes shows get as little as 500 downloads. Sometimes somebody posts it in a chat room or blog somewhere else, and it takes off like wildfire, and we've had them 15,000 downloads. And then I take it and I put it on my YouTube channel, Admiral Conservative, and on there I get about 12 to 1,500. And if I Google search the name Freedomlink on Freedomlink Radio on Google, I find that these shows are being put in countries all over the world. And you just really don't have any idea until you actually do the research into all this to figure out, holy crap, you know what? We are getting someplace, and I had no idea. And it's just goes to show you once again that even somebody that just goes and does a blog talk radio, you can catch lightning in a bottle like that if you say the right things, or somebody just so happens to put it on a website somewhere that has a lot of traffic. All of a sudden, boom, there it is, and it's just exploded. So this stuff does get out, and it does make a difference. And the only thing that you just cannot get yourself stuck on the fact that you're not swaying the masses, because that's not going to happen. It's too late for that, you know. So we are making a difference. Each one of you that are listening to this show is making a difference in any way that you can, whether it be trying to convince your coworker or your family member. And believe me, I know all about that. I know about the rejection you get from family. My wife and I are the biggest black sheep that you could ever possibly imagine when it comes to this kind of stuff. You know, we are tinfoil hatters to the core, according to our family, and so be it. You know what? Because we'll be there on the other side when they're and they'll be knocking on our door, and it'll be very hard for me to let them in at that point in time. But we do make a difference. So please, folks, you have to stay true to the cause, and you have to just keep pushing along in any way that you possibly can, whether it be something as simple as just talking to your neighbor or making that contact. Networking at this juncture is key, because at any given time, especially with this new net neutrality crap that they're trying to shove down our throat and the UN trying to regulate the Internet, it's only a matter of time before this goes away. And I'm telling you, folks, now is the time. If you don't network now, then I'm sorry, but you're going to be in deep doo-doo. What do you think, Griff?
Yes, Joe.
I got off on a little rant.
Yeah, you sounded real good. I wrote it all down. I think
sure
you're
you
right
did. You know shorthand?
I never met him. I wanted to tell John Moore something, and it just went out of my mind. Is that old age?
No, it's aluminum.
Do you think I'm obsessed with being old?
Absolutely not.
Well,
you've been old for a long time now.
I have. I'm getting older. I'll be 71 here in a few more weeks.
But you know, of course, age is relative.
Is
you know, Oh, sure. There are people 10 years older than you running the New York Marathon, Griff. I know it's hard to. It's hard
to believe that.
To kind of grasp it, but again, you know, it's all in the eye of the beholder. So it's just a matter of, you know, you getting off your tuchus and you know, start running.
I still can't remember what I wanted to say to John. I'll call him, John. I'll call you tomorrow on the telephone.
That's fine. I look forward to your call, Griff.
So how crucial, John Moore, how crucial do you think making these contacts are now while we still have the time?
Contacts within your community?
Absolutely.
Well, it's important that you know your local chief of police, your local fire chief, mayor if you're in an incorporated area, your local sheriff. It's important that you know them and they know you. If there's any way to be involved with as a neighborhood watch or auxiliary to the fire department, they need people just to make coffee and direct traffic at a fire. Become a member of your local ham radio club. They're great men and women, and their passion is preparedness. That's the whole passion of the ham radio hobby, is preparedness. And most communities of any size are going to have a ham radio club within a reasonable driving distance. So all these things are things people need to do, and they need to do now. And I cannot emphasize how important it is to know your neighbors, meet them, invite them over for barbecue, help them repair a fence, or do something. You know, work together. This is how you really get to know people: is doing a project with them. Offer to take them to the store if there's bad weather, or to a doctor's appointment. And if there are older folks nearby, you know, get to know them and let them know that you're there to look out for them. If they're a widow living by herself, that she has somebody she can count on to get her a can of coffee or a loaf of bread if she needs it or needs to go to a doctor's appointment. That's how you ingratiate yourself and be part of a community. Join your local church. It's incredibly important to be part of a local church. If you can put up with and tolerate the doctrine, they all have their own little idiosyncrasies. We got people around me that talk in tongues, and that's fine. I don't talk in tongues, but if they want to, God bless them.
Hey,
if you can tolerate it and put up with it, it's a great way to network and become once again part of the community. So
that's
do
true.
that. Whatever
That's true. Yep. Hey, let's go to the phones. We got about 9 minutes left. Let's take another caller. Area code 503. You're live on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going? Good
Very
show
good.
tonight. Yeah, it's good to hear it. What you could do is you could do the cool cats. And that would be captains of our liberty, citizens against tyranny.
Oh, there you go. That's not bad. You see, that's
then
good
maybe
because.
Then
do you
maybe
see
Griff
that?
would jump on your team.
I don't know about that. It's kind of tough to get the old grifter to jump. He'll jump all right, but not until my bullet loaded ass is gonna fall over dead.
I like how Griffin broke out tonight and said that he was 71, but he didn't tell you that was dog years. Because to be in the boat with Washington, that'd be 71 dog years. Wouldn't it be pretty close? To be right.
Is cat years and dog years
Washington?
the same? Is it the same between cat and dog?
Oh, okay.
No, I think
7 years.
I think cats live longer.
So a dog would be less than 7 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know that I think it's 1 for every 7 for dogs. I don't know what it is for cats.
Well, it starts getting in bigger numbers as the dog increases. It like starts jumping in like tens, and for every year is like 10 years instead of 7 years. But that's beside the point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We need to store food for cats.
Yeah.
Everybody should store food for the animals, for the cats and dogs.
Well, yeah, the dogs for sure.
Yeah.
I don't really do cats much.
See, I'm a cat guy.
Yeah, I know you guys are.
I'm a cat guy. I gotta say, the felines. I've had dogs. Used to be a dog guy. Then I got cats, and all of a sudden my world changed. Now it's upside down. I'm telling you, man. It's a whole new experience.
You want to know what it is that when a dog finds a human, he says, "Phew, finally I found a god that I could worship." When a cat finds a human, he says, "Whew, that sucker he's found himself a god he can worship now."
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I am all about cats. I used to be about dogs, and the problem that I have is that just the intelligence factor. I mean, I've had a smart dog before, but it's just a matter of there's just something about cats, man. They get you, and I think you're right. I think they control us. I'll be quite honest with you.
The Egyptians were heavy into cats,
and
and the witches, they got cats too. They deal with spirits, cats, or they bring spirits, coerce spirits. I heard that thing over those birds dropping out of the sky, and I thought instantly scalar activities. I was going to make sure I got a hold of Griff tonight, but you guys already covered that.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
Exactly what it was. It says those birds, I heard this report that the birds dropped to the ground. They were just scattered all over the ground, and there was no sign of trauma whatsoever to the birds. And the best they could come up with is that, well, some of them got hit by a lightning bolt.
Right, but no trauma.
Yeah.
But no trauma.
No trauma. Yeah. Well,
right.
The ones that got hit by a lightning bolt, how could that even affect them? Because they're not grounded. Griff, you're the man on that. If you're not grounded, how's that lightning going to affect you? It's going to pass right through you, isn't it?
Well, no, not with a bird. It does cremate the bird, but you would see destructive signs in the mechanics.
Absolutely,
of the bird.
you would have something. You'd have something there. They wouldn't just be dead. The only thing I can equate it to is, okay, you've got all these dead birds around. All right, Who threw out the Alka-Seltzer out there? Come on now, guys. Who was the guy that threw the Alka-Seltzer out and fed the birds? You know what I mean? But
I guess the other thing too, it wasn't all. Most of them were starlings or blackbird, red-winged blackbirds or starlings, but there was different varieties of birds too. So it wasn't like just a flock that got caught up in something. This was a mass scale hit of something that got taken out. And then of course those fish. Do you know how far away those fish were from where the birds hit the ground?
About 120, 125 miles.
What's the scalar hit, Griff?
Let me tell you something. A few years ago, there was a radio station in Tennessee that was hit. Everything in the station was fried. Everything was fried. About a year ago, Joyce Riley, the Power Hour, her station was hit, and it fried everything in the station. It also melted the battery-operated clock on the wall. All the telephones, everything was fried. So there's more going on than just typical scalar, but your earthquake patterns are undoubtedly scalar. There's an awful lot going on in the atmosphere.
And they very well could want to set off some caldera or what have you. It may be in the cards. It may be in the plans. You don't know what the heck these people are up to. But I can tell you this, that their plan is in full swing, and I think that they've taken all the stops out because they know it's now or never. This is it. Let's go, man. Let's go for broke, and if it works, it works, and if not,
Yeah, well, they don't have nothing. They got their underground bunkers.
That's right. I mean, isn't it interesting, John Moore, that that they have the underground bunkers and the seed vaults and the FEMA camps and the coffins and everything all lined up all nice and pretty?
Well, it is, and they have a limited window between now and not too distant future when even they will be shut down because of the weather events, earthquakes, volcanoes, and rising ocean levels. And they intend to get as much done between now and then to get their shiny new world order in place and ready to go. So when they come through the other side, in their opinion, they'll have their shiny new world order all set up and ready to go on the other side of these events.
Well, I got a rude awakening for them. It ain't going to happen. And I'm just calling it out. And I'm calling it the way I see it, that reality is going to be something totally different than their little dream that they're living right now. And and folks, with that said, we're out of time. So, John, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. It was fantastic. Again, folks, John Moore's website, www.thelibertyman.com. And they can get your DVD and all of your all the stuff you have for sale on your website, correct, John?
That's right.
Fantastic. Folks, next show coming up Thursday evening. I don't have a guest scheduled as of yet, but that can all change. Until then, this is Joe Joseph signing off. Hope you guys have a good week this week, and